The F1 Championship concludes at Abu Dhabi, and a championship is decided between Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton, and we see the young Dutch take home his first ever Formula One championship. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. I just got done watching the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, the final race of the 2021 Formula One Championship. We got a lot of controversial things to talk about in this race, and there's a lot to talk about from today's race. Let's go ahead and just jump straight to it. So coming into this race, you have Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, who were tied for the championship. This is the first time since 1974 when you had two drivers that were tied for the championship, that being Emerson Fittipaldi and Paul Reganozzi in 1974. And coming into this race, these two were tied. Max Verstappen had won the pole from qualifying. He had basically been on softs. Lewis Hamilton was 4 tenths slower. On the start of the race, the first controversy of the race basically ended up happening. Lewis Hamilton had a really great start to the race. Really great start. He was 1/10 of a second, had a better reaction time than Max Verstappen and had the lead. But coming into turn 6 and turn number 7 in the race, Max Verstappen literally freaking sends it down into turn 6 or turn number 7, and Lewis Hamilton basically somewhat gains an advantage from it by driving off the track. Now, you can make an argument that Max really sent it into the corner, but Max kept his car onto the racetrack. Meanwhile, Lewis gained a second or two of an advantage. And the stewards and Michael Massey felt like at the time that he basically was good, even though in my personal opinion, we'll get into some of the officiating calls later, that in my opinion was not a great decision by the FIA. And Lewis Hamilton, though, still had the raw pace, and he would dominate the early portion of this race at the points. Max Verstappen's car, unfortunately, also fell off because of the soft compounds, and Max came to pit road about lap 15 and 16. Then Lewis Hamilton, about a lap or two later, responded to it and came down pit road as well to get fresh tires. I think he went on the harder compounds too. Max also went on the harder compounds as too. And as we got farther into the races, Lewis's car just got really good. But with around 20 laps to go, a safety car, a virtual safety car came out, I think for a car getting into the outside wall having damage. They threw a virtual safety car, and Max Verstappen came down the road, and he got fresh tires as well and was able to get fresher tires and try to run down Lewis Hamilton. And at least in the early portions of the run, Max Verstappen was catching Lewis Hamilton by about 1 to 2 seconds. He was gaining about like a second a lap. But as time went on, tire degradation came in, as that is a thing in Formula 1. And Max only started gaining 6/10 of a second, then 5/10 of a second, then 4/10 of a second. Eventually, he lost all that ground and gained on Lewis, and unfortunately caught up to lap cars and was really never able to get past it. Meanwhile, there were multiple issues for tire issues and cars running into the outside wall. Kimi Räikkönen, unfortunately, he basically kind of locked up the tires and he got into the outside barrier. I'm a little surprised they didn't throw a virtual safety car for that, because he had hit the outside wall. And basically, he unfortunately retired from his final race. This is his final race in Formula 1. Kimi Räikkönen had an insane and a really incredible career, so it is unfortunate this is the end of his Formula 1 career, but he unfortunately has retired from Formula 1 racing after today. Also, George Russell, he had problems as well. I think he basically had a tire go down a puncture. He had to come down pit road, and unfortunately, he retired from the race as well, and also had brake caliber and brake issues on the car as well. And also Lando Norris in a later portion of the race, he had a tire puncture in the race, later in the race, and unfortunately, instead of potentially finishing in the top 5, which he absolutely deserved, he unfortunately, I think, finished 7th or 8th in today's race because of that, but he was able to stay on the lead lap. We'll get to the controversy here in just a second. It looks like Lewis Hamilton is pretty much going to go on and win the race today. And then there's contact between Mick Schumacher and Nicholas Latifi. Mick Schumacher and Nicholas Latifi were battling really hard, and there was contact. And then with 6 laps to go, Nicholas Latifi unfortunately drove it way into the inside. And that's what's really interesting is Williams is associated with Mercedes. And unfortunately, Nicholas Latifi spun out and hit the outside tire barrier, and unfortunately caused a safety car with 6 laps to go. And then Red Bull placed 40 chess, and they decided to come down pit road and decided to get fresh, soft tires, and because they know there's most likely only going to be 1 or 2 laps to go when we go back racing. At first, the officials, the FIA officials said that we're not going to let any of the lap cars by, and we're going to have Max Verstappen stay back. But with 1 or 2 laps to go for the green flag drop, they decided to let the lap cars, all 5 of the lap cars, go ahead and by that are in front of Max, and they let Max and Lewis battle it out for the championship. So on the restart, you see Lewis Hamilton have a really good jump. Then Max Verstappen on corner 3 or corner 4, he's able to get around. Then Lewis tries to fight back, but Max Verstappen is able to clear. And Max Verstappen comes off the corner, and he finally picks up his first Formula One championship. He's the first non-German or British driver to win the Formula One championship since 2007. Kimi Räikkönen won the championship by 1 point over Lewis Hamilton, and Max Verstappen at the young age of 24 is a Formula One world champion. The best of the best, the two guys going for it, coming down to the last lap of the race. Really, really incredible season overall. But before congratulating Max Verstappen, I really want to talk about the FIA officiating, because honestly, it's not just this week that the FIA officiating has been really, really bad. It has been an issue for the last few weeks where you've had a lot of problems with the FIA officiating. And to me, the FIA really needs to get their stuff together in regards to officiating these races, because the way that they've officiated these races, especially over the last couple weeks, you look back last week at Saudi Arabia where they had issues there, and you look back as a way because they had like 4 or 5 safety cars there, and the penalty of the way they officiated the situation Verstappen and Hamilton, and the way they officiated this week among other weeks, they just absolutely really, really did a bad job. And I do feel like there was more entertainment put into this race than there was at legitimate racing. And I'm not saying that Formula One can't be entertaining, but you want to make it organically. And it felt like, unfortunately, what ended up happening was it wasn't overall the more organic way they did it. And to me, the FIA really needs to get their stuff together. I know that we've criticized NASCAR's officiating because I'm more of a NASCAR fan myself than a Formula One fan, but we've criticized NASCAR's officiating. And to me, I think that the FIA really kind of unfortunately made it worse than what NASCAR did. Again, NASCAR had really, really bad calls. But the FIA, man, the way that they called it, they should have not let Lewis get as far ahead as they did. Lewis should have given the position back and then eventually passing. I think Lewis was eventually going to get around him anyways, because I think Lewis had better pace than Max. But I really believe that the FIA did a bad job there. And the way they officiated this race is a little bit of a clusterfuck. It was just really, really ridiculous at the end of the race. But at the same time, I'm really so for Max. I will tell you, I'm more of a Max Verstappen fan than a Lewis Hamilton fan. I like Lewis Hamilton a lot. I know a lot of people criticize Lewis Hamilton, say, oh, he's not the greatest Formula One driver because legitimately he has the best car in the field. Lewis Hamilton's the best driver in the field. You cannot sit here and say he's not, because Lewis Hamilton absolutely is the best Formula One driver ever. It's not Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton is the best Formula One driver, in my opinion, ever. But I will say Max Verstappen, I think, could challenge him long-term down the road. And Max Verstappen's a guy that, in my opinion, should never really been in the position of, he probably would have already clinched championship anyways, and not for what happened to Silverstone and what happened to Hungary. But at the same time, I'm so stoked and so pumped up for Max Verstappen being a Formula One champion. And to see him get his first championship at only the age of 24 years old and have 20 career Formula One wins, that is just impressive. And I think that we're getting ready to see the new guy come in. Lewis Hamilton, I don't know how much longer he's going to have in Formula One. He got to hit it. Maybe he might retire next year, but I think he's going to be back next year. But Lewis Hamilton, how much longer is he going to be at the peak of his career? That's one thing to be determined. But this season in general, to see Max Verstappen win it, I'm really, really pumped up for him, and I'm happy he got it done. This season, no doubt, despite the controversy, this season I think was the best Formula One season I think we've ever had in Formula One. I've ever watched. I've watched a lot of really, really dull seasons where the champion has decided 1 or 2 races before. This is the first time that a championship is being decided since 2016. And honestly, Checo, not to mention Checo Perez, who unfortunately had to retire at the end of the race too, he held up Lewis Hamilton. And I really think that kind of saved Max Verstappen's race too. Because Lewis Hamilton basically unfortunately got affected by Red Bull at the same time too because of Checo Perez. But one thing I think that could happen is Mercedes may end up trying to protest this, but honestly, Red Bull could try to protest too the fact that they had the situation early in the race. So I really don't think Mercedes is going to have a feeding right there. So I just want to say this again. Congratulations to Max Verstappen on winning the championship. But man, the FIA really does, in my opinion, they need to get their stuff together going down the road, because the FIA really kind of had an embarrassing shambles of a race, in my opinion. So anyway, that is going to be for today's Formula One race review and championship review from Abu Dhabi. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel and notifications so you're notified when a video does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support our page as well. Link description below for that. And comment your thoughts on today's race and today's championship. What are your thoughts on today's race? Let me know below. Number your score of today's race in the comments below. And congratulate Max Verstappen on winning his first Formula One championship. Let me know that in the comments below. Tomorrow I'll have the NASCAR Camp World Truck Series predictions up on the channel. I was originally planning to put those up today, but I decided to go ahead and put them up tomorrow so you guys can so we can talk about the Formula One Championship. But anyway, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's video, and I'll see you guys next time for some more great and awesome NASCAR, IndyCar, F1, other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.